My faith journey started when I was a child. I was part of a family that was in the church every time the doors were open for Sunday morning worship, for Sunday night service, for Wednesday nights and the fellowship dinners. We were there all the time. It was interesting though. You see, my mom was Church of Christ and my dad was Baptist, so we went back and forth between those churches, oftentimes spending more time at the Church of Christ than the other. And it was very difficult for me to kind of reconcile who I was and how I fit into the messages that they preached and the way that they perceived faith. But it became a foundation for me. I had an understanding of who God was. I knew that God loved me, that He created me. But it wasn't until I got to college that I met my girlfriend, who became my wife, Jenny, and we began to go to church at Trinity United Methodist, where I really heard the story, the message of grace for the first time. Dan Kilgore was the pastor there at the time. And I remember going on Sunday mornings and hearing him talk not about hellfire and brimstone or about selection. Instead, he talked about God's amazing grace. The fact that He made us, that He loves us, and that He wants to bring us back into relationship with Him. And He does it not because we're deserving, not because we somehow have done something special, but simply because He made us. For the very first time, I guess I saw God as the Father that we think of Him as being. Not only a maker, but someone who loves the creation that He's made. And it was such a freeing and a wonderful time. Over the past 19 years since those days at the university when I got so involved, I haven't really been able to separate myself from the Methodist Church and truly haven't tried to. I absolutely enjoy it. It's a message of forgiveness that really radiates, and it seems that all the churches do a great job of presenting that. And I think that that's probably the reason why I wound up where I am now. I mean, at the age of 13, I felt called to ministry. I had no idea what it meant at the time, but I felt this still small voice. I felt God pulling me towards the church in ways that went beyond just sitting in the pews, but it scared me to death. In fact, it terrified me. And I think that comes from a result of me feeling like I wasn't worthy. I wasn't good enough. I spent a lot of my time as a kid kind of feeling that way. I wasn't the best athlete. I was a good student, I guess. I struggled with things. I had sin that I dealt with, but it wasn't really until I grew up and found myself in the Methodist Church and kind of along that process of understanding God's grace that I recognized that it's not about what I bring to the table as much as it is about what God gives me to bring to the table. So I found myself working with students at Huffman United Methodist Church almost 12 years ago. And then, after working there, I came to Discovery, where I spent time not only working with students, but thankfully working as the interim pastor when the church had a need for it. And it was during that time when I was doing sermons on Sunday and helping to lead worship and teaching myself how to play new instruments and taking care of pastoral care and really trying to do as many jobs as possible that I felt like I was for the very first time doing the job that God wanted me to do. And it was unbelievable. That feeling of connection to God, that proximity to Him that was greater than anything else I'd ever experienced. I think it made me a better father. I think it made me a better husband. I think it made me a better person. It certainly made me a better Christian, and it also gave me an understanding of God's desire for me to be involved in the church as a pastor. And how neat is that? To be given an opportunity to really be a spokesperson for God and to work, to lead others to be the hands and the feet and voice of Christ in this earth. The process is not always easy. I mean, it certainly leads you in interesting places, different directions. But it's a process that's been awesome. Much like this process for getting the licensed local study done. Reading books and writing 65 pages and feeling like every step was bringing me closer to where I needed to be. In terms of being a local pastor, I think it's the next step on that journey. I look forward to what it means. I look forward to working as an associate or as a senior pastor, but I also look forward to what comes after that. I'd like to attend seminary. I'd like to be ordained. And I'd like to be able to be the very best me for God that I can be.